Our purpose at We is to change the dismal statistics of our people, particularly Māori and Pasifika people. We do this through helping small and medium-sized businesses to thrive. Our businesses need our help. So many have felt the pressures of lockdown and are facing challenges that they've never faced before. Challenges that are impacting their livelihoods. That is why we're bringing you this series, to share stories of the people behind our businesses, their successes, their failures, their challenges, and their triumphs.
If you are already in business, we hope you will be inspired. Perhaps someone will share one piece of gold that makes a difference in your business. If you've been thinking about starting a business, we hope that you will be motivated to start your own business venture.
We hope that by sharing these stories, we can help small businesses on the road to recovery all across New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific.
So grab your cup of tea and whakarongo mai. Kia ora te whānau nau mai, haere mai, welcome, and it's Māori Language Week this week too. So so thank you for joining us today for Cup of Tea with We. I've got a very exciting guest speaker tonight, Andy Hamilton, who is one of the Manaaki team, but also is part of Icehouse Ventures. So let me welcome Andrew Hamilton. Welcome. Thanks for being here with us this evening.
Good to be here on what is it, Monday night? Is it Monday night?
It's a Monday night.
Every day just merges into another one, doesn't it? Got to do better at working on those weekends.
I know. I think that it's worse when you're in a small business sometimes, I feel. We were just talking about this today, actually. People saying, what did you do in the weekend? And some people just spent most of the weekend working.
Well, and look, like Manaaki itself is a small business. And Pat said to me last week, he goes to me, who's our co-founder, he goes, hey, bro, how does it feel to be in a small business? And I went, stressful.
I know. Well, the thing is, you have spent so much time in big businesses and working with big businesses. So why did you make the move to working into a small business and helping small businesses?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, a couple of reasons. I mean, I did like 20 years at Icehouse and I wasn't a paid employee. I was the first employee. But I'd always been, and when that time came to finish, which was earlier this year, and COVID caused Manaaki to be created. I've always, though, been interested around how could you engage genuinely with small business and do it at scale. I've always kind of felt, I've seen how some of the large organizations like banks or telcos who mean well, but find it hard to engage. Business associations as well. I think we know if you're really there, it's quite hard to do it at scale. So I was always interested, how could we do it genuinely? I don't think we thought about it too much. And, I was at home and I was going, right, Pat's like, let's do it. Let's build a platform. So we did.
Yeah. And it's been a great platform too, because you guys have got huge engagement. So many small businesses come to you for advice and help and support.
Yeah, we do. And, so it's Manaaki.io. And I think the thing is that my wife and I, we are now, Ty used to do the moderation at the beginning and all the questions. Now my wife and I do it, and you're just sitting there in bed, new question comes in and you want to answer it. And that actually, the connectivity of being there, and we're moderating, and then we're the questions go out to the experts, and then we're waiting there going, oh, no one's answering. Right, better get in there and answer it. My wife goes to me the whole time, you're always answering all those questions. And I'm like,
well, they're pretty lucky that you're answering them, because
I don't want
you're very knowledgeable.
I don't know about that. I just care. I don't want owners. If someone posts a question, I want them to have a considered answer, but I want them to have an answer. On our little screen, you can see when no one's answered, and I'm like, do I just wait for someone, or do I just answer? Or then I run around the back and go to 3 of the experts and say, can you answer this? Lots of people think it's automated, and it is, but if someone is brave enough to ask, I think we owe it to them to give back to them some perspectives. Not tell them the answer, but just respond to that. I think that's a pretty brave thing to ask for help.
I totally agree. And a lot of small businesses can be too scared to ask for help for a number of different reasons, I think. One being, is it going to cost me money? That's one that problems that we have as accountants is, you might charge to ring you and ask you. It's like, actually, we don't charge for that sort of stuff. You can just call us. And we need to know, because otherwise we can't help. And then they get into worse problems. And that can actually be quite detrimental, especially to small businesses. They don't have big budgets. These are mums and dads businesses, and a whole lot of side hustles that have started just recently, which you'll know about too.
Yeah, and that bit that you talk about though is when we've got a real problem, like we've got a lease problem, or we've got a GST problem, owners know to ask for help often if they've got a blockage. But it's that hidden thing that you don't know about that you get worried about, like your cash flow management, or like at times I didn't know in the early days of the Icehouse the impact that aged debtors would have on your cash flow until I learned. Someone showed me and I was like, wow, I can just turn over my cash that much quicker. And so I think it's the bit when you don't know that I think is something that we rely on others, or we rely on ourselves to go, what did you do there? And that's why advisors are so important, because I think you sit in a trusted place as long as your SME feels they can reach out.
Yeah, that's so true. Let's talk a little bit about the unemployment rates that have gone up, the side hustles that have come about. Some people say that they're a little illegal. Some of them might be a little illegal. But I think that genuinely people are just trying, and Manaaki will be helping with some of that, giving advice and stuff. But yeah, what sort of advice do you have for these people who are trying to create something on the side, trying to generate some extra income for themselves and their families?
Well, I think we've seen a couple of things, right? We've seen the necessity and fear. And so I think we've seen people going, if people have lost their jobs and they're looking for another job, they're going, right, I better get something going in the meantime, which is a really good thing. Also, people who are worried about losing their job at the end of the wage subsidy, I think those people as well as going, I better get something going. And then there are others, I just think going, I've always thought about doing something. And so my advice is, why wouldn't you try it? It often costs not much to test and validate a market. And I still get lots of people, though, who say, I've got to spend money on this and spend money on that. And I say, stop. You don't have to spend, only thing you have to spend money on is your time to understand if there is a real market opportunity there. So I think the side hustles are amazing. Really interestingly, through Chooice, which is 2 O's for awesome, and Manaaki, I'm now start spelling choice when I'm writing in an email with 2 O's, which is not good. But you're starting, I think, you're seeing these side hustles. There's a massive amount of them being females. And the thing that I have to be optimist about this, I see what's happening is that people have a stronger desire for independence. And that, this could be the time when we look back and say, wow, so many of our whānau, so many of our communities became more independent. So that excites me. I mean, I don't want the failure rates,
No,
but I want people to earn a bit of income. And, I think that the IRD and the government are pretty understanding of people looking after themselves, but eventually, you got to pay your taxes, you got to do those things, that's just a requirement. Again, that's where a great advisor can come in to help you work out all of your accounts and what you need to do.
Yeah, totally. What do you think? So with the growth of lots of these side hustles, and also I guess people will be working from home more too, what do you think the future of Auckland looks like for business? Is that a bit of a loaded question?
Well, It's pretty interesting, right? Like I'm in the old laundry off the garage, right at home, and I've had to tidy up my office behind me because it had shit everywhere, um, and I quite like it. I go a bit crazy when I don't have interaction with people. Um, I think when I go into town, I haven't quite placed it, but it just doesn't feel as full. And I think it's causing us to rethink how much space we need. And is
Yeah.
that a bad thing? It's just made a lot of people more focused. It's taken some cost out. I know it's not good for the whole, like the ecosystem of restaurants and all of that and the landlords, but I suppose it's just creating a reset. I'm also a moderator person. Like I'm not going to go all extreme and go it's the end of
Mm,
commercial tenancies. I don't think it is, but I think
mm,
there's been a change. I also think, you know, subject to this COVID thing, my seat at the Icehouse Ventures, I could have it on a Monday and a Tuesday, and then
mm.
someone else could have it, on the other days. And so that's, I think more flexibility and yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's hard to be certain about anything when we've had the year that we've had.
And that makes it quite hard for business owners too. Like I've even found as a business owner, I'd like to think that I'm trying to think a little bit outside the box and try to be as innovative as possible and think about what the future might look like and where I might steer my business for the future. But when you have something like a pandemic and no one really knows what's going on, and you're just hoping that we're going to get out of this 2.5 and it's like 1 week more, 1 week more, it makes it a lot more difficult to be innovative and to think forwardly about what to do in your business. So, what sort of advice do you give to business owners like myself who has felt that?
Well, to me, it's pretty interesting because, you know, I tell this analogy of it's a bit like sailing, right? Like if you are a really experienced sailor, you know how fast your boat is going, but if there's two boats on the water, often it's hard to know which one's going faster. But if you use a gun and then you start using computer technology, you can measure everything and you know which one's going faster. And so I think in times like this, you got to celebrate little wins. So
Mm,
everything's got to be broken down into lots of little micro wins and try and win at something every day. And then I think we all have to be comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty. And we have to be comfortable that at times we feel we're not progressing, but we have to accept that I think, have to be non-linear in some of the things we do. The really interesting thing is this is a perfect time to test and trial things. This is the
mm,
perfect time to ask people, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And because before we used to go, we have to spend money to take a product to market or a new service to market, and then we need to be really smart about it. Whereas now it's just like, let's just ring five people and say, what do you think? What do you think about this? Would that be a good idea? Would it not? What do you do there? And then just test and iterate. And it's quite interesting. For me personally, I had a job that filled up 90% of my week, and then I played at the edges. My job's gone. So now I've got all these edges. And that's a bit like I think now I'm my own small business and I'm thinking about others. There's just lots of little bits. And as long as
mm,
you can win in enough of those, you
mm.
know, and not to give up. You can't give
Yeah.
up. There's always a way to find something more. And it's tough, right? I think it is really tough when you're because it's also when you don't win on something, it's like, you know, and then you start questioning yourself and you're like, oh, am I doing it right? Am I leading right? Am I communicating with the team right?
Mm,
And at times I think about, I've got two teenage daughters and I think about self-confidence for them, and then you should apply it back on yourself, because there's this combination of being indestructible and always believing you're going to win and being completely flat and never believing you've got the ability to win. And
mm,
both of those are wrong because we don't want to be so arrogant and humble that we don't see the opportunities or the
mm.
limitations, but we also can't be, I'll never get there. So it's a combination. I don't have the answer, right? I do find though, if you engage with other people, and get some inspiration from them, and it's quite amazing as humans through this. If you just open with people, they'll get on your team, or they help you, or it's remarkable what you can do, and it's remarkable how so many people don't want to ask for help or think they have to have all the answers.
Why do you think that is?
I just think they're afraid of rejection, and they think the answer is a logical based power answer, as opposed to trying to align around a vision as well. I think often if you what's the big, because I'm like a narrative person, storyteller. I need to know why we're doing this. And often when I meet many founders and business owners, I just want them to be successful. So I'm like, why do you do this? What are you about? And then I'm like, right, I want to help you because I believe in that vision. And it can be cereal, it can be cookies, it can be accounting services, it can be raising capital. It doesn't really matter to me. It's just, if you see someone doing the mahi who wants to work really hard, then it's hard not to get in behind them.
Yeah, I agree.
Even lawyers.
Hey, we need lawyers.
We do. I used to be a lawyer.
Just like we need accountants. Got to pay the taxes. Oh, geez.
Got to keep yourself out of jail.
That's true.
I must admit, though, I'll tell you, when I went into small business, and at the beginning of this year, and my accountant said to me, "Can you put 40 cents aside from every dollar you earn?" I was like, "Are you kidding me? There's not much left."
No, sadly not. Unless you've got a good accountant, they can help you get some of that 40 cents back. But
that's true.
Yeah. Before you were talking about having the right people around you or choosing the right people, how do you choose the right people? So how do you know who to ask advice for? How do you know, the people to call up to say, hey, is this a good idea? How do you choose those people?
I think it starts with having clarity around what's the issue or the opportunity that you have, right? Is it, you've got a problem? Because, by the way, like I got a phone call from one of the advisors on Manaaki last week saying, "Can you help me?" Now, if in her situation, because she had a legal issue, I would have known who to call. But she didn't know who to call, but she knew to call me because she knew I would know some lawyers. And so I think it starts with, what are you trying to achieve? And then it's like, right, who do I know? Ideally, another business owner that's had this issue, or an advisor that's had this issue. Because, and what I want to know from someone is, when you tried to get into foodstuffs with your product, what happened and how did you go through that? Don't tell me what to do, because I'll work that out. I can work that out. I want to know what you did. And I think that's really important. Context of asking people. And if you don't know, the people to ask, but there are these like pattern matches or connectors that you can ask. You can go to, there's lots of groups whether it's, you can go to Potama, you can go to Pacific Business Trust, you can go to ATEED, you can go to Icehouse, you can go to Business Mentors New Zealand. There's heaps of people out there to go, I'm looking to solve this issue. Like I've got a tax problem. I'm like, I'll give you the I'll give you the IRD. They're actually pretty good if you ring up and go, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
Normally we get you to do that though, Wendy, right?
I was going to say, sometimes it depends on who you get at the IRD, but generally, actually, they are pretty good, and they have got a lot of advice, and at least they'll give it to you for free too, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and they want to get paid in the end, and they know that people, can get in the trouble, and they'll work with you. I mean, you can't avoid having to pay your taxes, really. You can optimize to pay taxes, but in the end of the day, we've all got to lie straight and go, yeah, I paid my taxes. And it's interesting, again, when you explain that to your children, right? Well, they're like, well, so how does this work and why that? And well, we want society we need to look after our people, right?
Absolutely. The world goes round, doesn't go round without it. So that's one of the things that we say. It's like, well, we're not in the business to help you not pay tax. You just have to pay the right amount of tax because we all actually need taxes. Otherwise, we're all up the wazoo.
Yeah, we
What
are.
What have been some of the biggest obstacles that you've faced throughout your own businesses that you've had?
I think lack of experience when you're trying to do something you've never done before, whether that's raising capital, getting into like the Australian supermarkets, getting into America, getting into China. So trying to do things you've never done before and not being able to get a yes from people. And that's a raft of different things. I think the other thing is my biggest challenges often have been around making assumptions around what's going to happen with people, and then people do something completely different. That's like challenging. Like they say they're going to pay you, and they don't. And then probably because I've done a lot of startup stuff, the founders making assumptions around the market, and then that just not happening. And we call that product market fit. If you get product market fit, you've got so much demand you can't keep up to make it. So many people, they don't screw that up. They just get carried away with their idea and they don't really listen to what people are saying around what their pain is and what they want. And so, the final thing I say is hiring people because you know them and you like them and they've not done that role before, or they've not, and maybe that's actually one other thing I say is when we do hire people and then we don't set clear accountability and expectations around what their role is and what success is, and you just leave people to it, and then you find out 3 months later that they weren't doing their job. Well, the only person's fault is the manager, not the employee, because it's not their job to check on themselves, right? Like people need to be trained and helped to perform the way you want them to. You just can't assume they're going to rock in and start selling stuff for you.
And I must say, I have been guilty of that.
I think we all do, right? Because there's so much crap every day, and then when you finally get someone, you're like, oh, right, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yes,
and it's
done.
Like that game of whack-a-mole, right? Isn't it a frustrating thing though when you're so relieved, and then you wake up 3 months later and go, oh yeah, oh right, oh I should have really had those regular catch-ups with those people.
Oh no. I find it kind of like, because I've done this probably more than once. And it's just like, as a small business owner, you're like wearing 100 hats, well, probably 10 or 11. And so you're just thinking, I just need someone to do this job so that I don't have to do it anymore. And then they come in and they do the job and you just say, yay, off my plate. And then, actually, I didn't really get them set up in that role very well, did I? And now I have to do it all over again because I didn't do it properly. I didn't really tell them what they needed to do. I didn't give them, clear guidelines or training. And if they don't know what your expectations are, how are they supposed to meet them, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing with that is it's what matters in any set of tasks or jobs is the outcome that we all want from that. Actually, often not the process to get that. But normally when someone comes on, you say, look, this is how we do things, and this is the expectation on the outcome. You do that, you start doing that, I'll keep checking in with you. If you've got some ideas around how you can improve that to achieve the outcome, let's do it. And that's actually a really good thing. This is that you want someone to come in and own it and go, I think we can go from 2 to 4, not through 3. And I think that's pretty epic. There's something about the engagement, and I don't know whether COVID is causing a stronger sense of connectivity. Actually, ironically, given that we're all working remote and the like, but I think people more than ever want to have purpose. They want to have purpose in their life and in their family, but I think also in work, right? Like we're all grateful to have income and have a job, but we want to be involved in something that's meaningful and that makes a difference and contributes back into our community. So it's a really interesting question. You talked about right at the beginning was the role of large business in New Zealand, and that's I'm not going to talk in the negative ways about that. I just so love small business because of the independence I think it creates potentially for so many families. So it'd be quite interesting. Large businesses, I think, many of them are shedding staff, but are they going to adopt this and accept this micro or the side hustle movement going on? So maybe 3 days a week, full time. Well, 3 days a week, and then 2 days doing your own thing. That's pretty interesting.
That would be interesting, considering I would say a lot of business owners are already struggling with like their staff working from home. I'd say some of the reasons being because it's hard to keep track of what they're doing. And then I'm just wondering what are business owners going to think of having I mean, I've got staff that have got side hustles. I'm good with it because that's because we're business advisors. So I'm like, actually, if you've run, you can advise. If you've never run a business before, how can you tell somebody how to run a business other than something that's kind of more academic or theoretical? If you've never put your house on the line or had to borrow money or wondered how you're going to pay your bills, it's a whole different thing. But I just wonder what would the mindset be if they were maybe worried that they're going to lose staff because they might continue to do this side hustle and it might become a business. And, do you think that maybe that might become a bit of an issue?
I think some will and some won't. Some will embrace it. Some will go, wow, that's like if you're really connected and you don't have a control thesis around your staff, I think you'll embrace it. And I think, look, we all learn from things. Like I learned with Manaaki and Indigo, the way the team use things like Monday.com for time tracking. And we use Slack and we use all these other tools that enable us to be way more virtual and way more connected with each other. And I learned from that. I was like, wow, that Monday.com, I can get a free license and I can use that to track my clients' time so I know when I'm coming to the end of the month, I don't have to make up the billing. I can go, oh, I spent 4 hours here and 8 hours there, and I think there are tools out there that help us because I think there is definitely a greater obligation to lead in remote teams and to be connected and to find ways to be there for your team. And I think that some of the, like if you all sit next to each other, it's way easier. If you're not sitting next to each other, you've got to work at it.
That's true. And you actually set time for it. Yeah.
Do you work more or less than you did before?
Oh, way more. My team work way more. And they don't really want to be in the office. Like they don't mind. Sometimes they want to come in and they miss each other. But we're moving to remotely. We're going to get rid of our office.
You are?
Yep.
Wow.
Haven't told our landlord yet. Hopefully he's not watching. But yeah, we already have a team in Samoa, so we've already been working remotely as such, and COVID just showed us we can do it, and our team is so much more productive, and if they want to go for a walk for an hour, they go for a walk for an hour and the work gets done. We're actually probably working a whole lot better because COVID forced us to. So
I went and kind of sprayed the lawn this afternoon. Took the gumboots on and hat on and mask on and got a little bit of Roundup out there just to get rid of some weeds.
I know. It's so good. Otherwise, you come home from work, you're in the traffic for half an hour, 40 minutes to an hour, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much to do at home. But if you can pick away at little things while you're here and do whatever you need to do with the kids, and you're all round a whole lot happier. Isn't that what we want?
I hope so. I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. One last question before we go. Do you think that our purpose or businesses are going to have to become more purpose-driven if we're going to start working? Do you think that people are starting to want more for themselves and demand more and want to be part of something a whole lot bigger.
So I think there are a couple of things there. The first thing I'd say is that, look, anyone that's in employment is just grateful to have a job right now. And that's a really important thing. And so at times there's not a lot of room for reflection on that around purpose-driven organizations, because you don't feel like there's going to be lots of other opportunities out there. I think the second thing is that once you get over that, and if you're in a average environment, you are gonna, once recovery starts coming in, you're gonna look at other places and go, wow, they're really purpose-driven. You know, what would it be like to be there? And I actually think yes. I think, well, to me, every business can be purpose-driven. Every endeavor can be purpose-driven. It just requires a deep passion for that. And I think the honest answer is that if you don't have a deep passion for what you're doing, maybe there's a better owner of that business and a better leader of that business. And that's a harsh, I think that's a harsh view, but you know, if you're not really driving it, then you're not probably creating the best environment for people. And I think they do have choice, you know, and it's all types, right? That doesn't mean you can make your accountant who not, you know, like, you know, to be effusive and happy, right? You know, because that personality may not be like that. But I think, you know, I think purpose is important. I think people choose to come to work. I think once we all get over it's going to be okay, then that will be very interesting to see who does. And, you know, you mentioned just before, it's so fascinating with these side hustles, where some of them take off. That's quite exciting, you know, because, you know, that's more income, you know, and I keep on thinking, you know, why not 15-year-olds? Why not 16-year-olds? Why they should be doing a side hustle at school?
Absolutely.
Got to get going. Got to start earning the income. Take the taxes though for the house, pay for the power and the petrol.
The petrol for the lawnmower, the petrol for the driving to the sports, all that stuff. Yeah.
Love the lawnmower. It's my happy place when I'm cutting my grass.
There are a lot of child or young adults, teenage business owners out there. And we met one who's making millions of dollars, can I just say?
Who's that?
I probably shouldn't say on air because he hadn't told his parents yet. It was all through online. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
It's
I know,
awesome,
craziness.
actually. I love it.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
That also creates a role model for others to see, because there's no reason why you can't do something.
Yeah. I agree. All right, Andy, I told you that half hour was going to go quick, and it has.
It did. Yep, it did.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. And you'll like who we've got on tomorrow. So tomorrow we're speaking to Sarah Colcord from Chooice with a double O. Double O for awesome.
You will start spelling it that way. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's really cool. Well, we spell we now with a capital W and a capital E. That's just the way it is. So it's all about branding. You keep up your choice. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andy, and everyone else. I will see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. when I speak to Sarah Colcord. Mā te wā, whānau.